Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Sweeney. I'm the Training and Technical Assistance Coordinator from Program Compliance. I know I'm under Rachel Grass's access for the webinar, but I'll be the one actually conducting the webinar today. Welcome to the Ohio Housing Finance Agency's webinar on the 2017 Annual Owner Reporting. This webinar will be focusing on what is needed to complete your annual reporting submission to OFA. Today, we will cover how to manage users, reviewing errors and warnings, reviewing utility allowances, exporting events, and the basics of the import events or Xml upload, and submitting your tenant data and annual certification. We will start by discussing deadlines for your 2017 annual owner reporting. You can access this PowerPoint on the GoToWebinar access bar summarizing what is covered today. The email reminder sent out to you this morning tells you that you'll be able to submit questions during the webinar. Hopefully, as we go through the information, a lot of your questions will be answered. But if not, we will try to answer as many questions at the end of the presentation. If your questions are not answered during this session, or in the follow-up email, you can always contact the Delco Help Desk for assistance. The 2017 Annual Owner Certification and Tenant Data are due by Thursday, March 1st, 2018. Owners should ensure any property changes that have occurred during the 2017 calendar year are entered into Delco online. New projects or those in the lease-up phase must submit an annual owner certification and tenant data if one or more residents were income qualified during the 2017 calendar year. Projects only funded with Ohio Housing Trust Funds or other gap financing will need to submit tenant data on just the units that qualify for gap financing. Projects in extended use, meaning after the first 15 years of tax credit compliance, are required to report on all of your rental activities for the 2017 year. So let's get started. We will be using one of our test accounts to show Delco online. First, I'm going to go to our OFA's homepage, which is www.ohiohome.org, which is here. And there's a Delco icon close to the bottom of the home page under our Quick Links portal, which is here. Okay. This Delco home page has a link to the Delco portal at the top of the page, right here, on the right-hand side. I want to point out first the Delco Compliance User Guide, which is the third link on this page. This guide has all of the information we will be discussing today. This is an excellent resource to have at your fingertips, so I suggest you print it out. I also want to bring your attention to the Delco videos page, just here. This page contains how-to videos that cover the major areas of Delco used during reporting. The videos are registering in Delco, manually entering a tenant event, managing your property users, importing your XML upload, entering a student update, entering a composition update, and entering a transfer event. We also have a utility allowance video, which should be up very, very soon. It is done. And last year's annual reporting webinar is also on the website. We will now go to the Delco login page, which again is the first quick link. Here you would enter your username and password. Each user in Delco should have their own profile in Delco. If you are not registered in Delco, just click on the new users link here to register and follow the instructions. If you are having problems registering, please contact Delco Help. So I'm going to log in. Once you log in, it brings you to the programs page. and we'll click on the Tenant Income Certification / Owner Certification link. This will take you to the property listings page. All of your projects you have approved access for should be listed under properties assigned to you. When you register for Delco, you are required to enter each project you need access to. Each project should show the 2017 and 2018 certification years. We want to go to 2017. Again, we're going to use a test account. So I'm going to type that in here. And I'm going to go to the 2017 year. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I just see something that needs to be fixed. Okay, let me refresh my page. Okay, all right. Okay, first we want to discuss managing users in Delco. When you register in Delco, you're asked about permissions you want access to. The online project owner should always register first in Delco. This person gives access to all of the other users on the project. The project owner has permission to manage users, edit information, meaning adding tenant events and utility allowance information, and finalizing the property. The next level is the property manager. They have permissions to also manage users and edit the information. Next is a OC editor. They would have permissions to just edit information on the property. And lastly is OC viewer, who only has access to view the information on a property. We ask you to disregard any other types of users in Delco. We do not use those. Lastly, all of this information is included on the handout that you can access from the webinar section. Unless you are a property owner or manager in Delco, you will not see the current page I am on or be able to access the Manage Users link. So I'm going to go back to the property details page. And this page should show your OFA's awards and funding at the top. If your owner entity information or management company information are incorrect, please contact the Delco Help Desk so we can update this information for you. Please make sure when you do contact Delco Help with these updates that you are as detailed as possible. On the left side, you should see the property name, which is here, and the building identification numbers or bins under it. Click the plus sign to view each unit. Now you see all your units. If you click on the unit, it'll bring you to the unit informations page. The unit name, bedroom size, and square footage have been locked. But if this information is incorrect, please contact Delco Help so we can edit this for you. You are able to edit the AMI percentage and unit identity. If you have market units at your property, make sure you change the unit identity to market on the unit information page, which is here. Next, we will discuss utility allowances in Delco. So utility allowances should be reviewed to make sure they are entered correctly for your reporting year. If you have owner-paid utilities, you should go to the building details page, which is accessed by clicking on the bin, and you want to click the box next to owner pays utilities and then push update. Again, that's only for if the owner pays the utilities. Utility allowances that were used anytime in the 2017 year need to be updated in the system. You may need to add your 2016 utility allowances if the effective date for your 2017 utility allowances are after January 1st, 2017. Utility allowances need to be entered for each type of allowance, not by unit or bin. Each type meaning by bedroom size or apartment layout. For example, a garden versus a townhome, or a one-bedroom versus a two-bedroom. To add a new utility allowance, click Add New. First, you want to add the description of your utility allowance. This description should be as detailed as possible. So here I'm going to add a two-bedroom, and I'm going to put the actual effective date on here, and that is the PHA, utility allowance. You want to be able to decipher between each type of allowance with this description. So make sure you have the correct effective date and allowance type. So again, this is actually the verified date because our effective date hasn't changed. But I'm going to put that here. And we'll get back to the effective date. Oh, I want a 4-digit year. There we go. Okay, so the verified date was added to the utility allowances page last year. Since some effective dates for utility allowances last more than 1 year, the verified date was added for compliance purposes, since this needs to be checked on a yearly basis. You want to make sure you have a new verified date every year, even if the effective date has not changed. So again, this is the same effective date, sorry. I meant to put 2016, but my verified date will be the 2017 year. And again, this is for a 2-bedroom, and we will be using the PHA. Okay. If your utility allowances are owner paid, you can mark them on this utility allowance section, but it is not required. And actually, I suggest you not to do it. It's just more work for yourself. Each category for utility allowances must be entered. For example, the source, the amount, paid by, and the allowance type. So this utility allowance is just electric, $75, and this is tenant paid. And again, this is the PHA. And they also have trash, which is another $10. Tenant paid, and again, we will put the PHA. Once you have all the sources entered, make sure you choose the actual building identification numbers on the right-hand side of the page that correspond to that utility allowance. So I'm going to click all of these because all of my bins have 2 bedrooms in them. And once all of the information is entered correctly, I'll push save. And now we can see the 2-bedroom is entered here. So once your utility allowances information are entered correctly, you can begin entering your tenant data. You need to enter your tenant data based on when it occurred. Do not enter tenant data by event type. For example, entering all of your move-ins, then going back and then entering all of your move-outs would be incorrect. If a 2017 resident moved in before January 1st, 2017, and you were manually entering tenant data, their move-in information needs to be entered before you can add any updates in the 2017 year. For example, a tenant that moved in 2010, like this tenant here, we would have to go into the 2010 year in Delco, which you can access, and enter their move-in. You would need to go and enter this first before you go into 2017 to do any updates. Please refer to the Tenant Income Certification, or TIC, from the tenant's move-in year to enter in the correct data. Make sure the unit is correctly listed as vacant. If entering a move-in, each tenant should have a move-in event or the last event listed for the current household before entering any other events for the current year. If you do see information, it will be grayed out, as you see here. Make sure the information is correct before adding a new event. Once you have entered the move-in event for your tenant, you're able to add their updated events for 2017. Make sure you add all events for the property. I'm just going to add in any date here to show you the different event types. The different event types that you can have, again, are move-ins, move-outs, recertifications, transfers, composition updates, rent updates, and or student updates. If the unit has home or Ohio Housing Trust funds, you will need to do a recertification for the unit. It does not matter if 2017 is the year for the full third-party recertification or self-certification. You will select Recertify as your unit type if you have those home or trust funds. Unless there was a rent or composition update on a different day that your tenant recertified, you can make all of the changes during a recertification event. So I'm just going to delete this so we can go to different event types. Okay. If your property is 100% tax credit, meaning you have no market rate units at your property, you need to do student updates for all of your units. Properties in extended use are not required to complete annual student updates. However, you may choose to do so if you are planning to apply for OFA funding for this property in the future. If there has been any rent updates anytime in the 2017 year, you need to do a rent update in the system here. If a household member other than the head of household has moved out or moved in, you need to do a composition update for your tenant. If your tenant moved from one unit to another in the same property, you will need to do a transfer event. You would click Transfer Out as the event type. Delco gives unit options for transfer for your tenant once you pick this event type. So once you pick this, then the transfer building will come up, and then once I would pick a building, units that are vacant in that building would show here. You have to make sure that the unit you are trying to transfer into is vacant before you do this event. If not, that particular unit will not appear as an option. I'm just going to delete this event again. Go back. And the last event type is the move out, which can be chosen here. If you had a tenant that lived in a unit in 2017, but also moved out during the year, you need to record this in Delco. Make sure their move-in event is entered in Delco before you enter their move-out event. If you had a tenant move in the same unit after this, you will need to add them as well. I want to reiterate that we are concerned with all of your activity during the 2017 year. If you try to enter all of your move-ins, then your move-outs, this will create errors on your unit status. And you can see the unit status on the unit information page, which is right here. Events should be entered in chronological order, and this doesn't matter which year. It has to be entered in order no matter what. to ensure that information is stored properly in Delco. You will receive an error if events are not entered in order. We recommend adding events unit by unit. Now we're going to go back to the property details page and discuss exporting events. If you would like to view your progress on entering tenant events, click Export Events. This will only show events entered for the reporting year you were in. This will give you an overall view of the data you have entered into each unit. This feature replaces the compliance tool data sheet. To convert this chart into an Excel spreadsheet, click the Export Events button, and then you can open or save the Excel spreadsheet down here at the bottom. You can use this feature to check if you have entered all of your events for the year or to see if you're missing something in a particular unit. Next, we will discuss the Import Events feature. If you have compliance software and are planning to use your XML file to upload into Delco, you would do this here. We will not be demonstrating the XML upload process today, but we will be going through the steps using our compliance user guide. And then also just a reminder that there is an how-to video on doing XML uploads in our Delco videos, quick links. So here's our XML section of the compliance user guide. You want to make sure that your XML file has tenant data for the entire 2017 year. Each time you do an upload for a property, it wipes out any tenant data in that reporting year. You will click on the Import Events feature. See if it shows it, which will be right here. And then you will select your file to upload. You will likely have a few errors initially, and if so, please refer to the list of common errors during the upload process that is listed in the Compliance User Guide. So I'm going to go here. Again, this shows you where you would upload the file. And this page talks about some of our common errors during an XML upload. A lot of the errors can be corrected in the XML file by using the XML Notepad from 2007. This notepad is available for free on the Microsoft website. And we also have a link to the XML Notepad in our Compliance User Guide, which is here. And again, you can download the notepad for free. If you are unable to correct the errors while you're trying to upload your XML file, please contact our Delco Help Desk for assistance. If the upload is successful, you will have to select the utility allowances for each unit. So again, once you do that, you go through the errors. Here's the utility allowance page. This is what it looks like. If you have more than 100 units at your property, please bypass selecting your utility allowances on this page because the page will time out without any notice. You just would like to go all the way to the bottom and scroll down and push save again. And there's a little note here in our compliance guide about that. But once you do select your utility allowances, if you have less than 100 units, you want to push save. And then you will get the note that says successfully saved XML data. Once you've done that, you would click the Done button to complete the process. If you did have to bypass the utility allowance section, you would need to go into each unit and select the correct utility allowance. I know this could be a pain when you have a lot of units, but that's the best we could do at this point with some of the bigger properties. Okay, we're going to go back to Delco. So it is imperative that once you have successfully uploaded your data into Delco, that you go back to your export events feature to make sure that your XML file did truly upload successfully. A lot of times an XML file says that it has uploaded and it has not. So you need to go into the export events feature to make sure this list is, filled up once you have uploaded that XML file. Next, we'll discuss warnings and errors in Delco. If you are unable to add an event because of an error, which is in red, this must be fixed before you can save the event. There were some recent changes to how rent and income levels show up on tenant events during our December Delco release. Now you are only able to choose the rent and income levels that are stated on the project's restrictive covenant and/or funding agreement. If you think your information is incorrect, please contact the Delco Help Desk and we will look into your correct rent and income limits and try to get this fixed for you. At the top of the property details page, you may find an alert about the issues with your tenant data. So right now, don't have any issues at the top, but I will create an issue just so you guys could see an issue. Okay, there we go. So if I was to click this, this shows the property issues on the page. The severity listed will either be warning or error. If the severity is a warning, you are able to finalize your tenant data with this issue listed. If the severity is an error, you have to correct this issue before you can finalize your tenant data. Both types of issues should be reviewed to see if they can be resolved. If the tenant data is correct, please disregard the warning. If you have an error and need help correcting the tenant data, again, please contact the Delco Help Desk. After you have reviewed your tenant events, resolved your errors, reviewed your utility allowances, it is now time to begin the Finalize year process. If everything is in order, this is a fairly simple process. You will begin on the property details page and select Finalize year. Once you get here, you want to click Start Finalization. You first have a list of unresolved issues. Again, as you saw, I just created an issue to show you. And this is a warning. So the way to get to that issue from that unit or that event, you just click on the event. And again, this was a utility allowance issue, which is a common issue. So I would click the correct utility allowance and push update to resolve this. Once the issues are resolved, you would go back to Finalize year, and then you see we don't have a list anymore. If you get stuck with an error message you can't resolve here on this page, again, contact our Delco Help Desk. Note that once you finalize the year and start this process, you are now in property review status, meaning you no longer are able to add events, but are confirming that everything that is needed is included before you submit. Warnings do not need to be resolved to continue, but they may come up again when your analyst completes the compliance checks that are part of the annual owner review process, and a warning could potentially be listed as a finding letter. Finally, click Proceed to Finalize. and then click Finalize to submit your tenant data. After the submission is complete, the Finalize button will now be a receipt of the submission. It is a good idea to print this receipt and to print your export events for your records. In addition to the receipt being available for the property, you will now have a finalized status for the reporting year that you just completed. Here are reminders of the statuses in Delco used for annual reporting. The first status is active, which the property is open for the certification year. The next is the property review status, which change once you get into the finalization process, but you can edit events. Once it is finalized, the property has been closed and you're no longer able to submit tenant events in the reporting year. The next step is our monitoring status, which also reviews the property before completion, and our resolution status, which also over reviews the property before completion. And finally, our completed status, where you finalize the property and it is approved and the property has been closed for that certification year. So the last part we'll be talking about today is the annual certification. This is the second part of the annual owner reporting submission. I want to click here for the annual certification. The first page is the property's general information page that needs to be reviewed. If any of your property information is incorrect, you can note it here. So if you see anything that is wrong, you just want to click no, and then there's a box here for you to put in your changes. Please be as detailed as possible in explaining the changes that are needed. So all of our information is correct here, so I'm going to just push next. And this brings me to the annual certification page. Depending on your funding and compliance year, you will choose the certification type and or types for your property. This particular property is in its first 15 years of compliance and has home funds. So we would want to choose the tax credit option and the gap financing. To choose more than one option at a time, hold down your control button, and again, both will be chosen, and then push load. This is a reminder that if you are in extended use, do not choose the tax credit option as well. You would only use the extended use option. And then again, if you had gap financing, you would choose that as well. Okay, once you push load, the correct questions for your funding type will appear. And we'll go through answering all of the questions here. Bear with me, I'm going to answer all of these questions. Yes, no, no, no changes. And again, if you have any questions about any of the questions on the annual certification, you can always contact either one of your analysts or contact the Delco Help Desk for assistance here. 8, yes, it's not a change. Yes. T2 is no. So you want to put in the date. This plan was revised. So we'll just make up a date here in 2017. Oh, 2, yes. Okay. So once all those questions are answered, I'm going to point out the new questions on the annual certification. So questions 24 through 28 were added this year. Again, this was also part of our December Delco release. The first 1, 2, 3, 4 questions have to do with the Violence Against Women's Act, or VAWA. So you would answer all of these. And then the last question has to do with compliance training, which they usually come up. Give me 1 second. Hold on, I'll have to do this again. Then once this should come up, I'm not sure what's going on. But the last question talks about if someone from your organization has attended our compliance training within the last 2 years, and this is a QAP requirement, and it's supposed to give you a box here, and it did earlier, to list who actually attended the trainings, because we are actually checking this a lot more often now. So once all of this is completed, you will push next. See, my stuff is already entered, and this brings you to our signature page. So you would enter in your name, your title, the company, email address, and direct phone number. And once all this information is entered, just want to push submit. And then you see I have a receipt for the time and the date that I entered my annual certification. So you could just push OK. Make sure to print this page here. And if you do forget to print it, you now have the option to go back into the annual certification and print from the first page, which is great because you didn't used to be able to do that. So once you get here, you're able to export this into a PDF file to print for your records. Okay, so this brings our presentation to an end. We thank you for attending today's tenant data webinar, and I will begin answering questions.